Good evening and welcome to the Town of Douglas Planning Board meeting for Thursday, October 13th, 2022. Time is 7 o'clock. First item, Citizens Forum. Call for public comment. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments for the public forum? Raise your hand online. Seeing none. A&R is none. Public hearings, 7 PM public hearing, zoning modifications to Douglas zoning bylaws, adoption of new section 6.8 residentially scaled and commercially scaled solar energy systems. Notice, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Town of Douglas Planning Board will hold public hearings on Thursday, October 13th, 2022, beginning at 7 PM in the Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room, 29 Depot Street, for the purpose of reviewing proposals and amendments to the following Town of Douglas zoning bylaws. 7 PM, adoption of new Section 6.8 residentially scaled and commercially scaled solar energy systems. The complete text of the proposed zoning articles can be obtained and/or reviewed during normal business hours at the town clerk's and the Douglas Planning Board, both located at 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to open the hearing. Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we've seen this bylaw revised before for Springtown meeting. We've also gone over it previously. So do we have anything else to add or subtract from the proposal in front of you now?
No. I don't. On the height, through the chair, one question on the height. What is the height? I don't have the book here with me tonight.
The height of
The building being open.
the building, no,
What is the height that can be achieved?
for the solar bylaw?
She's on.
Okay, we're just.
We're doing a
we'll
solar.
pause.
Doing the solar first? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. So the memorandum from September 9th, 2022 is what we would be submitting for town meeting.
I'm just looking through, what are we submitting for that land clearing? There's some questions.
From the citizen, the letter, believe it's omitted.
That's the way that we had it.
I think it was. It was under 6.8.11. And then you do still have the land clearing.
Through the chair.
Yes,
On 6.8.4.6,
yes.
it says approved by the Douglas Department of Public Works. We don't have a Department of Public Works.
How did you find that?
I mean, do you want to just change it to,
Do you want to be ahead of that?
no, I do not.
Oh, okay. Newly formed
You want to just change it to,
Highway Department?
yeah, Highway Department?
Good catch.
So would the Highway Department approve materials? A source approved? I would
Approved
maybe,
by the-
maybe building official? Who would be the governing?
I'm sorry.
Who would be the governing person for
That would be the
materials?
highway superintendent.
Okay.
Yeah.
For earthwork activities?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
He's the trench inspector and all that anyway, so.
okay. Yeah, it seems like, the urban fill importation type
Yeah,
clause
yeah.
in that.
You know, potentially, that's proposed potential. Build, I don't
Or Board of Health.
know.
Yeah, all Board of, I was gonna say the same thing, yeah, all Board of Health, but,
But if it's a site plan review, it also.
Appropriate authority?
Yeah.
Can we just put appropriate authority? Or authority approved to make the determination?
Sure, we don't have our fill. Consultant,
Yeah, that's better, because then DEP would probably also be consulted for any urban fill stuff, besides the Board of Health.
yeah, I mean, I suppose we should ask him first if he wants to take that position.
Yeah, I mean, would be required testing and monitoring.
Yes,
That could also be the engineer that we,
Yeah,
you could put by the appropriate department heads, which would include, Board of Health, Highway, Conservation even. You don't want hazardous materials being
no.
brought in.
And I think, I'm trying to think back on that fill that we did, that they had gone belly up, yeah.
Yeah.
Towards Uxbridge, right before Uxbridge line.
Yeah, when,
Who
where
monitored
McIntyre is
that
now.
Who monitored that material? Was it the engineer?
I think,
Bill probably did that.
I think what we had originally, so this is both water, and they have a DPW director, and their DPW director is also the town engineer. I think that's why I ended up reading Department of Public Works to begin with. So. The agent of the planning.
Yeah.
That would be good. Agent of the planning board, yeah. That makes it you, right?
Designee, if it's a peer review consultant, you know?
Yeah.
Or the-
Yeah.
Whoever the agent.
So, through the chair, if I can ask a question that I probably should know already. Under 6.8.91 on setbacks, it says consistent with existing residential districts. It has the 60, 150, 50, but it says 4 acres. That was supposed to be. Is that something we've not seen? We are 2 acres.
Yeah, so they're talking about the dimensional regs.
And so we want 4 acres, that you, in order to do a commercial scaled solar, they can't do it unless they have 4 acres. That's fine, I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, so the dimensional regulations listed below for all residential districts, so the minimum lot area is 2.
Correct.
Well, it's
I think
actually,
it should be. So should that be struck from 4 to 2?
isn't it 90,000?
90,000 square feet, please.
if you're on to
Where'd the 4 come from? From the other, just to pull down from the other?
Yeah, it's 90,000
Template.
square feet.
Yeah, I think, so, any facility is gonna wanna do 1 megawatt. The rule of thumb is 5 acres per megawatt. And they're not gonna build anything less than, so 4 acres is less than 5 anyway, so it's kind of a moot point.
But are
Yeah.
they coming to us anyway? I mean, it would be,
Or we take out and the minimum lot frontage is incorrect for residential. So,
These were the numbers that you
frontage would be
chose.
200.
right, but the explanation above is consistent with dimensional regulations. So we have the dimensional table, and it has acreage and frontage. So it's kind of like setbacks should be, and this isn't, okay, these are not the same.
This is minimum.
So we need to erase, yeah, we need to edit the setbacks. Because we picked these, minimum front setback 100 feet, and then sides usually 25, rear 25, front is usually 50.
So at our previous meeting, we went over these numbers and created these numbers,
Yes,
this board.
yes. But the words don't match.
The above words in the paragraph
Okay.
saying consistent with our residentially scaled,
The property line shall be consistent with the dimensional regulations listed below for all residential.
Okay, I'm reading it a little bit different. Yeah, that's fine.
And then for all other zones, it should meet those applicable zoning districts.
Okay, yep. Yeah, it's not supposed to match what we have for RA right
Okay,
now.
then that's
It's supposed to
I just wanted to
match
bring it
what
up.
the table is. Yeah, no, those are good.
And there is a height restriction here of 15.
Yeah, that's not gonna.
I'm not sure.
Anyone else, board? Comments? Questions? Anyone in the audience, questions or concerns regarding this hearing? I'll entertain a motion to make the recommendation for the adoption
With the
of.
notes. One note.
Would you like to make the motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to adopt,
No,
move forward.
recommend to the
Recommend
Board of Selectmen.
to the
Yeah,
Board of
yeah.
Selectmen this legal notice of public hearing for the adoption of the solar bylaw, and with the modification of the one note from Highway Department, it was to the Highway
Amendments.
Department, because that's what we have here in Douglas, with that note.
Did we go with, when we went with the planning board agent?
Agent and agent of the planning board, there were two notes.
Planning board agent.
Yeah. Okay,
So, yeah, the motion is to
Motion.
recommend that that the selectmen place it on the warrant, right?
yes,
Correct.
as amended.
It's in the warrant already, so we're recommending favorable action at the town meeting.
Right. Yeah. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Sokrat, second by Mr. Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Actually, we need to close the public hearing also.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marks, second by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, 7:13. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, Town of Douglas Planning Board will hold public hearings on Thursday, October 13th, 2022, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass., for the purpose of reviewing proposals and amendments to the following Town of Douglas bylaws. The amendment to Section 10.0 definitions, new definition for building height, 7:05 p.m. The complete text of the proposed zoning articles can be obtained and/or reviewed during normal business hours at the Douglas Town Clerk and the Douglas Planning Board, both located at 29 Depot Street in Douglas, Mass. Okay, do we have any comments or questions on this bylaw?
Move to open.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. September 9th, 2022. The measurement shall be based on the average finished grade elevation within 5 feet of the structure to the highest point of the structure. Any issues with that? Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this hearing?
The only question I had, what is the maximum height?
35, or 3 stories. Or no, 2.5 stories.
Oh, two.
Okay, I think we went over this before, so,
Yep.
Want a motion?
yeah.
Building inspector's gonna be at the meeting.
Yes, let's hope that we would like to request him so that he can answer any questions.
Motion to recommend to the selectmen favorably. Town warrant.
Mr. Marks made the motion, Mr. Zwicker second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll do that.
Motion.
Made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Marks, all those in favor?
Aye.
In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, time is 7:15. Town of Douglas Planning Board will hold public hearings on Thursday, October 13th, 2022, beginning at 7 PM in the Douglas Municipal Center Resource Room, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass, for purpose of reviewing proposals and amendments to the following Town of Douglas zoning bylaws. 7:10 PM, removal of Section 6.1, earth removal. The complete text of the proposed zoning articles can be obtained and or reviewed during normal business hours in the Town of Douglas Clerk and the Town of Douglas Planning Board, both located at 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
So, a little history on this, how this came about, 'cause this is not how...
Yeah, it kind of tripped me up a little bit.
Yeah, this is not how I intended for this to go. So
Okay.
I'll walk through a little timeline here.
Okay.
So, given we had a lot of confusion with some of the exemptions, previous earth removal bylaw between board, developers, et cetera, with some of the incidental construction stuff, the building commissioner and I drafted an amendment to section 6.1 to change square foot, cubic yards from 300 cubic yards to 1,000, and to get rid of some of the exemptions. Ran some math to say that 1,000 cubic yards would make it so that even if you were installing a foundation, a septic, in most cases, it wouldn't even reach 1,000 cubic yards, you wouldn't need a permit, so it's like as good as an exemption in that regard. So what we did is we put it forth as a zoning bylaw amendment to town council. And town council fired back saying, you should probably consider adopting this as a general bylaw instead for a couple of different reasons. Of course, I buried that page already, so anyway, I'll get to that in a second. So we shifted it to a general bylaw, and we put it in front of the select board. Now, since the select board administers general bylaws, we gave them the option to say, look, since this is you, you're the administering authority, would you like this to be you, or would you like this to be the planning board? So I asked that at 2 different occasions, and they did not change it from select board. It stays as select board, hopefully, select board administering the earth removal bylaw as a general bylaw moving forward. In order to do that, if that were to get approved at town meeting, you have to strike what's in the zoning bylaw, so you don't have 2 conflicting zoning bylaws. So what originally was introduced as an amendment to an existing section, jurisdiction by the planning board, morphed into, at the recommendation of town council, a general bylaw administered by the select board. There's the history.
What was the reasoning behind the recommendation from town council? Because I would think that the zoning enforcement officer would have more avenues for enforcement
Yeah, this has to
when
do
I
we're
agree.
moving earth around.
Through the chair, yeah. It's a recommendation, but that doesn't mean we have to, it's not in stone. I'd rather have it as a zoning bylaw than a general
I mean,
bylaw.
it's annihilating a piece of property. Like, how is it not zoning? How are you not, regulating the activity within that zone
Right,
through zoning enforcement?
right, I agree.
Who would, through the chair, who would be responsible for enforcing that if it becomes a general bylaw?
The selectmen.
designee of the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now the building, through the chair, the building commissioner can go out
Yeah.
and report and have authority on it.
Through the
So
chair.
there's an avenue there for inspections more than the select board.
Through the chair, it all pertains to earth removal, which is planning board's authority, and to start cutting pieces of it out and divvying it up to different boards, I think it should all remain zoning and planning board,
So I
and
have,
earth, and within the earth removal bylaw. is a zoning bylaw.
So part of the opinion is agricultural exemptions, and I believe he used the example in Uxbridge as a reason. They tried to claim an agricultural exemption upon filling a large pit with unclean fill. I don't know about this. Do you guys know about that?
Yes. It was deemed as an accessory to the principal agricultural use of that property, and that is one that is very unusual that went as far as it went.
I talked about the agricultural exemption no longer being applicable because that's a zoning regulation. The exemption, put it into general, that no longer applies. And the way you read it was, don't have to worry about grandfathering for fill operations, even though we didn't write a fill bylaw at this time. So I asked for their presence to answer these questions in greater detail, but that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the activity, the fill activity was deemed accessory, an accessory use to the principal use of that property because of the scale of the property and the scale of the fill portion of it. So,
So Madam Chair, what's before us is just the striking of 6.1. The general bylaw doesn't have to come to us for public hearing. In fact, the select board doesn't even have to hold a public hearing for a general bylaw. Just decide to put it on the warrant, it goes forward as such. What I was thinking, and this is just my opinion, was if the board were to approve striking 6.1, the request the Board of Selectmen change the jurisdictional authority to the planning board instead of the selectmen in the general bylaw, so the planning board would still hold jurisdiction.
I'm still unsure on the enforcement methods that you lose when it moves to the general bylaw. And the remedies that an applicant can have for appeal.
It still has its appeal avenue. It's through a different section of
Is it?
law. I forget what it-
District court?
He cited it for me, and it wouldn't go to the ZBA, right?
Right.
But there is a mechanism.
Through the chair, I think this one here is coming up too quick without further information, where it's kind of sketchy on what's being said there and everything else. So not to have that one go forward, leave it alone for right now.
So the general bylaw adoption, I mean, it can essentially be in both places at one time? Or would that be kicked back?
So that's kind of the risk we have with the town meeting warrant, is we have Article 12, which is the elimination of the zoning bylaw, which needs a 2/3 vote, right? And then followed by the acceptance of the general bylaw, which needs a majority vote.
You'd
One
have one
passes or
vote.
the other one doesn't, you could end up with conflicting regulations.
We could pass over both of them.
You almost would rather have something no matter what, and if the general bylaw passes, then you worry about scratching this off, but you shouldn't scratch it off now, because it doesn't pass, there's no regulations.
Right. Because the other one is coming first. This
Right.
one is coming first. So why didn't the adoption of the general?
I asked the same question, but the town administrator believes that this is the way you do it, because if you don't get the 2/3 vote, then you don't even bother
But you could
voting on
get,
Article 13.
you could get it in one and not in the other. That's the scary part.
This is also recommended path by legal counsel on that end.
Okay. Okay.
So this
Yeah,
is all-
and then,
If I can, to the chair, why is this all coming about for this? Just over some controversies, and that's it?
it's,
What, so if we can, to the chair, why don't we just leave it the way it is, and try to clean up what needs to be cleaned up, and then bring that forward on the next
Yeah.
That's
town
what I
meeting?
tried to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So I
fine.
think,
I agree.
I agree on that aspect. I mean, I think it's a slippery slope where we're going here. Remove this item from the warrant. Leave it the way it is. Let's take a month or 2 months, whatever it is, to really hammer out what needs to be hammered out. Write it up the way it needs to be written up, approved by town council, and then submit that to the next town meeting.
Yeah. Can I ask-
Instead of
yeah.
Yeah,
playing here.
through the chair, where did this come from?
This came from, well, you need an initiator, right? So Ken Fraser and I, we're working on the language for the cubic foot yard, right? To eliminate some of the gray area with what's incidental to construction and all the confusion we had
Yeah.
with the subdivision in town.
Okay.
So we wanted to make it better for everybody, the developers especially, so there's no confusion as what's a backyard, is that included in incidental or not? So we raised that threshold so that in case, like those single-family homes likely wouldn't have to apply, except for all the fill that's in the backyard, of course.
Okay.
So those would have had individual permits, but regardless,
Yeah. I think it's raising more questions than
the
answers.
selectmen decided to take it up as an initiator for the general.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
If it came to the chair, why wasn't that question brought to this board? Why didn't you come to us and say, hey, we'd like to clean this up?
Fair question.
Why?
Because-
You don't trust the planning board to handle a situation like
I had a
that?
feeling someone was going to ask me that. That is not what happened.
Well then, so this I think all went about completely wrong. They should have good ideas, bring it to the planning board, say, hey, guys, we'd like to clean up the bylaw, or whatever, put it in front of us, let's try to clean it all up, then present that to the selectmen for town warrant.
So I took the advice of town council.
Yeah, that's
And town council was, make this a general bylaw, put it in front of the administering authority of general bylaws, which is the board of selectmen.
Yeah.
And that's why it didn't come here.
Okay, so, yes.
Is it possible to have, to table this until town council can come and go
It's going to be
through?
too late.
Okay, it's timing.
We might have a
Yes.
chance.
We can recommend to the selectmen unfavorably.
We don't, unfavorable.
And then when the town meeting sees that it's
They'll
unfavorable.
pass, somebody will stand
They'll
up
make a
and
motion
vote to pass over.
over.
Play it out. If we continue it one more meeting and hope to get town council's opinion, what's in front of us is just the striking of the section, right? Not the actual bylaw, the general bylaw.
So it's either
So
the
even
whole
if,
thing
even
or
if we postponed a meeting and then made a recommendation at that other meeting, that recommendation is going to be yea or nay. All right, so it's not like we're looking to change any more language that the moderator could potentially reject.
Yeah.
So I think, to Ms. Schlesman's point, you might have some time.
So the other thing is, the bylaw, the general bylaw, what does that look like?
It's not in the packets? Did it not make it in?
I'm not, let me just double check.
And that's the whole thing, here we are,
I asked for it to be.
to the
No, I
chair.
don't think so.
Okay, I'll go get those.
I don't know, I don't want to really spend too much time, but if
Yeah,
you could
let's-
get those
yeah.
for the board.
I will.
And then the other thing that I find a little bit concerning about Attorney Talaman's response is that all of his concerns are about fill operations. And I don't believe there's anything that addresses fill in our earth removal in the purpose. So I'm not sure why we're bringing in the fill aspect. He's saying grandfathering for fill operations. I don't recall any, so that would be a moot point. The issue surrounding importation for dirty materials and they may impact groundwater. We have an example of an urban fill site that we did permit, so we can look back at that. And then the agricultural exemptions, again, with unclean fill. So he's recommending adopting a fill bylaw.
Yeah.
He says this is another reason that you may wish to consider adopting a fill bylaw under the general bylaws, not a earth removal bylaw.
Believe me, I don't want to add another meeting per week to my regular schedule, so it's not like I wanted this to go to selectmen, so.
And earth,
I want anyone to get that
yeah,
idea.
earth removal tends
So-
to go hand in hand with large-scale projects that,
Sure.
so it's a burden on the applicant to meet another bar at a different board.
At a different board, yeah. So if they want, through the chair, if town council is concerned about the fact that we don't have a fill bylaw, then we should create a fill bylaw.
Tried.
Yeah.
But I can't,
I tried.
I can't agree with
No, which,
it being involved with earth removal and changing what we do as a board for earth removal and stuff like that and handing it over to a different board. I think we should also, earth removal should be earth removal. A fill bylaw should be a fill bylaw. And then
Yeah, so I
I
want to
don't
hear
like
what
the idea that
the
we're just
pros and cons
cutting
are.
chunks of it out.
And where our liability and exposure is
Okay.
versus in the general section.
And if I can, to the chair, I really think what should be done is concerns about nomenclature, either omissions or adding to the bylaw we already have, should be brought here, hammered out, and then, like we're doing everything else,
Right.
send that forward,
Yeah.
and let's hammer out some of the concerns. And I understand what's going on between you, Ken, and everything, what questions have come up that
Oh, yeah.
we haven't
I
seen
agree,
before.
Mike. Yeah, I agree.
So let's address them. Going this drastic avenue, I think is just ludicrous.
We're not sure the methodology.
There's no 11th hour on this. I mean, we're not
Right.
pressed to get this on.
There was an issue, and I think that the enforcement of the bylaw can be discretionary. The zoning enforcement officer has discretion for enforcement. So as long as the enforcement is the same across the board, I
Yep.
think that the 300 cubic, you're putting in a septic and this and filling in for your house,
Yeah.
that can be found as
Yep.
an
Yeah,
an exemption.
But it should be a separate bylaw, not cutting pieces of earth removal out and handing it over to another board for authority. It's our board that handles that.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is continue.
Do we know for sure if we have enough time?
The warrant's
November.
printed the same day, so,
I'm just thinking maybe.
But it's already on the warrant,
yeah.
so it's not getting removed or anything.
Right, and we are allowed to provide our report up until the date of the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes, planning boards have their meeting on that day. So October 27th at 7 PM.
So moved.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Let me just double check.
I'll second that.
Let's do 7:25 PM. October 27th, 7:25 PM. What?
I was seeing if anyone had public comment.
Oh, I didn't see any. Anybody have public comment for this article? Oh, no. I'll entertain a motion to continue October 27th, 7:25.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next item, 7:30 PM, public hearing, Louis and Marie Sanchez, application for common driveway special permit, 114 South Street. Let me just read the article. Thank you. Good evening. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, and the Town of Douglas Common Driveway Zoning Bylaw, Section 6.3 and 9.3, the Douglas Planning Board will hold a public hearing on the application for Louis and Marie Sanchez regarding a common driveway special permit. The property location is 114 South Street, Assessor's Map 239, Parcel 1, Douglas, Mass. The public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 13th at 7:30 PM in the Douglas Municipal Center, Resource Room 29 Depot Street, Douglas. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. Visit douglas-ma.gov for the agenda and Zoom info. A copy of the application is available for review during regular business hours in the Douglas Community Development Department, 29 Depot Street, Douglas, Mass. Okay,
All set?
yes, thank you.
Okay, for the record, Margaret Bacon, Civil Site Engineering, and I'm here representing Louis and Marie Sanchez for property located at 114 South Street in Douglas. Just to get your bearings, here is South Street right here, and here's Arch Street. Our clients are requesting a approval of a special permit to have a common driveway into the rear lot in the back here. The Sanchez currently live right here in this house at 132. They have a shared driveway with their neighbors right next door, the Tracy and Kevin Pellerin. They would like to do They purchased this other lot right here about 12 years ago, and they'd like to build another house up in the back. So the first step of the process is I realized we need to get approval for a special permit for a common driveway, so that 3 properties can access one common driveway. So as I mentioned earlier, these 2 houses already have a shared driveway, so we would like to turn that into a common driveway so he could access the rear parcel. So the history of this lot right here, back in '94, all these frontage lots were cut out, and they cut this lot out with the intent, because it's all wetlands in the back here, so with the intent to access this area through this access easement. After this was subdivided out, then Nature View Estates then purchased this big parcel. This was all part of a big 75-acre parcel where they had Crescent View Estates. And then they recut this side of the lot so that it would still meet the zoning requirements, because we don't have an R factor in Douglas, so you can do a lot like this. He has the 200 feet of frontage, and then to avoid wetland impacts on the very long driveway, then do the common driveway.
Thank you. So, this is a special permit. So you are meeting all the requirements of the special permit?
I believe so.
Okay, I'm just gonna take a moment. The board can ask any questions. Or Mr. Benoit, did you wanna fill us in? I'm just gonna look it up on my phone.
Sure.
I have the zoning right here if you want to take a look at that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the presenter mentions an R factor that the town does not have. Lots like this are very uncommon. That is one of the stranger shaped lots I've ever seen. However, because of that, we'll call it the tail off the back there, or the head of the dinosaur, whatever you want to call it, has 200 feet of frontage. That's what, that was the one criteria I was concerned about. And the other thing I was concerned about that I asked town council about was that the common driveway doesn't exist within that little 50-foot wide strip. At the end, it breaks out because of a wetland at the end and has an easement. I asked if that was possible. The response, in a nutshell, was yes, it's possible, because the easement is on a property that is serviced by the common driveway. It wouldn't be allowed if that property was not using the common driveway.
So that parcel is included as an applicant?
That's correct. It's
Okay.
the neighbor.
And they said,
And, okay, all right. Got that.
Question?
Yes?
What's the difference between common and shared?
Shared is two.
But you, in terms of what you're describing there?
Well, we're doing a common, which will be 3, access to 3 residences. So a common, you need the special permit. A common driveway could be 3 to 5.
Up to 5, yeah.
Up to 5 lots. Where shared is by right, where there's only 2. So right now, it's just a shared between these 2. And we want to up it to 3. So that kicks in the special permit.
If I may ask, other than like retreat lots, I mean, this town has like different things going on that I'm
Right.
not used to. Is it that the difference between a way or a private way is that these are easements on the existing properties that creates that common driveway that exists within their 200-foot required, because it's, whereas if you had a way or say a private way, that would have to be outside of the 200-foot. It couldn't be, this couldn't be a private way because they don't have the extra land that creates that. I mean, it's, right?
Nor does it need to.
Right. Because this
Provisions
allows, this by, our zoning here allows this, so.
Right.
By, yeah, as a special permit, okay.
If this is approved, then the 3 properties would have to prepare an easement document for maintenance and snow removal, things like
Could-
that. So-
If I may, again, as educational purposes, thank you, through the chair. So if anybody has backland, and they get the neighbors to agree to create a shared or common driveway, people with backland, as long as they meet the dimensional requirements of that backland, can create this.
Well, they also have to have 200 feet of frontage.
Yeah,
So that's the other criteria.
You gotta have
Each
frontage,
one
by
of
the
the
way.
lots has 200 feet of frontage on South Street.
So that piece up there is part of that piece in the back. I see
That's
how it is,
correct.
right, okay.
So it meets all the dimensional frontage requirements, all within that.
But because of all the
zone.
wetland difficulties and everything, this is a better way to do it, but it still keeps the dimensional 200-foot of frontage. Obviously, they have plenty of land, and I see how that is, yeah.
Okay,
Through the
so
chair.
you're mentioning, I can't tell by your plan that each lot has the dimensional standards of the zoning bylaw. So 200 feet of frontage, 90,000 square feet for all 3 lots?
Correct.
Okay. I can't see that on the plan, though.
It doesn't
Okay.
show.
So how can I be sure?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I did the math on all of these in advance, checking the deeds as well.
I think,
Should show.
so design requirements number 2, lots to be served by a common driveway must meet the dimensional standards of the zoning bylaw in effect at the time they were created.
Okay, well, I do have recorded plans that show all those dimensional
Okay,
requirements that this plan refers to.
okay. When were the lots created?
These lots here were created in '94.
Okay, what was the zoning at the time?
Actually, I have the plan right here.
200 feet of frontage and 2 acres.
Was it still?
I
I
believe
thought it
so.
was 150 at some point. Or was that just RC?
Through the chair, because
think it's
I
always
see
been 2
dimensions on the
acres.
backside, but none on the street side.
Yeah, I know, that's interesting. It's not there. I mean, there is the one on the upper lot adds
But
up
that-
to exactly
There's nothing
200,
on the street.
but not on these other ones, it doesn't show.
You know, I probably left the layer off.
Yeah,
That's probably what I did.
Yeah, that's what it
I left the layer off.
that's what it looks like. So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Speak with the applicant. We had another version of this plan, and there were a few things on there that didn't need to be, including like signature lines and stuff.
Yeah.
So Ms. Bacon just dropped this off today, and it looks like those layers with those dimensions aren't here. I do
Okay.
have the original plan that was submitted, if you'd like me to go get it.
Okay,
Yeah, the
yeah.
only thing I tweaked is I took the signature block off here and tweaked some of the.
Mm-hmm. And you
notes on it.
deleted, and you
And I didn't-
turned off the
I
layer.
didn't- You know, I thought this looked kind of
It looked
void there.
a little,
But, you know,
'Cause you-
a
you-
little,
Through the chair, because you have them on the
unfinished.
backside.
right,
Okay, but you have nothing on the street side.
but I do on the other plan, the original plan I sent.
he's going to get it. So the other thing is, grade of the common driveway shall not exceed the 10.
Yeah, it's fairly flat.
So how do I know that? Where does it say, oh, the first thing? You just made a note?
It's in the notes.
Okay. And has there been any response from police chief, fire chief, highway?
Not as yesterday afternoon, I'm not sure. Matt will be able to better answer that.
I need it.
Where is the existing constructed up to?
Where the construction,
There's an existing gravel driveway?
well, the existing paved driveway up to, you'll see that little dash line? And then it turns dash, that's a gravel drive in the back.
Okay.
Over, there's existing culverts already in place that were installed quite a while ago when they were doing all the construction up there
Yeah.
on Crescent Road.
So there's an intermittent stream with a teensy bit of BVW?
Yeah, just steep banks, steep rocky banks. so.
Okay.
Chair? On page 3 of the application, it says that the width of the driveway varies. It's on average 15 feet. But on the plan,
It's 22.
it says that the cleared width of the common driveway is greater than 22 feet. Is this a technicality, meaning the width of the driveway is 15, and then how much it's cleared is 22, or?
Yeah,
There's
so
a
the
cleared
actual
width
treed,
of 22.
area, like trees and,
Okay.
let's see.
But currently, it's gravel.
The beginning's paved.
To the dotted
Beginning's
line.
paved up till about the.
Halfway.
Yeah.
So why does
about
it
here.
say a apron of 20 feet? It's just, you're just putting it down because
A
it is.
proposed, yeah, because per the,
No,
You have to meet
required.
that,
Right,
right, that's why you
correct.
put it there. Thank you.
So, and then it's also required 22 feet if greater than 300 feet for the common driveway.
Okay.
So that's why you're stating that it is currently wider than 22 feet?
correct.
At this
The-
moment?
The clear zone.
The clear zone
Yes, it
is,
is.
is wider than 22? Okay.
Through the chair. Highway Department's giving okay for a new entrance?
It's
Where I see
existing.
your existing one
Yeah.
was over here, but now you're moving it?
No, we're not, we're going to come in through here to avoid a wetland crossing.
Okay.
and Culvert, so
Okay.
we come in through this easement and then onto it.
Okay, all right, that clears it up. Just by the wording, you had existing driveway and all that down there, didn't know which way we were
Oh, yeah.
coming in.
Well, that just adds a little confusion to it.
Yeah.
Did you request any waivers?
I don't think we need any.
Okay. So the planning board shall consider recommendations from the police chief, fire chief, highway superintendent. So I'd like to know if you're saying that it's already declared with, so that's in a well-established
Correct, it's long.
way at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty much along sides of the driveway
Okay.
until we get to a, back here, then it thins out into a gravel drive to the proposed house lot.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Margaret, where's the access for the backland? Is there still access to the backland out? Any place else other than that driveway?
Well, I know they have the access easement right here, that if they're ever going to do Brown Bear Terrace or something on Crescent Road.
Yeah, oh, it meets, okay, with Crescent Drive, yeah?
Yeah, so they do have these easements back here, and this easement back here for drainage from the Crescent Road
Okay.
subdivision, which they don't really ever see much water in that basin at all.
Okay.
So I have to work around all these easements when they,
Thanks. So this is a separate parcel that they don't own?
this right here?
No, I mean the backland, the 75
That's
acres.
correct, yeah. So this is all part of that Crescent.
Crescent View,
Yeah,
yeah,
we got
okay,
it, and
yeah,
then
all right, okay, thank you. Yeah, that answers my question. And probably has the deeded
Okay.
fee access.
So without ripping
No,
the
good.
entire office apart, I did just pull them off of the assessor's maps.
Uh-huh.
So they're both 200 feet on the nose. But
Yeah, I should have had it on the plan, and I did have it on the plan at one time, but none of the lot lines are being changed from what's already been recorded. It's
I'm
just-
making sure you're meeting the requirements.
Yeah.
It's a special permit. It's
Sure.
not just a regular permit.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me you're gonna submit something that
Sure.
just verifies that, it's fine, but
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
looks like
okay.
blank.
Yeah, you're-
And one of the requirements is that you have to demonstrate that it
Sure.
meets the dimensional regulation.
Through the chair, may I ask a question that, out of the courtesy, we usually have feedback from the police, fire, and such, public, highway department, not department, public, highway department. Is that something we really should just dot the i's, cross the t's, and have here? I mean, I think, I got no problem with it, but I'd like those departments to sort of have a look-see and, so.
yeah.
Has there been response?
Yeah, we had a tech review meeting on the 26th or the 27th, it was a Monday. There were no other comments other than we were curious about that easement, and we had that vetted by town council.
So no comments by fire, police, or they knew about this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All applications get reviewed, tech review.
Yeah, that's one of the
Right.
clauses in it, so. Okay. Board, anything else?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes?
Maintenance of the common driveway, is it an association, or is it in the deed that who's,
They're going to have to come up with an easement.
Right.
That all three
Yeah.
lots will have to.
haven't done that yet, though?
No, it'll be after, once we know we got approval, then,
Okay.
So it's going to be, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's going to be something established before a building permit is issued.
Yeah.
And then a
Yep,
covenant
okay, yep,
before occupancy is issued.
yep, very good, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, no. Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns regarding this hearing? No? Okay. Seeing none, nobody on the screen, I'll entertain a motion to close.
You want a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We want to approve this first before we close public
I don't
hearing?
know, whichever the pleasure is.
6 of one, half a dozen of the
Yeah.
other.
Motion made by Mr. Zwicker, second by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And not seeing any waiver requests, I will entertain a motion to grant the common driveway special permit for 114 South Street.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Marks, seconded by Mr. Greco.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
And if you could get the plan,
Revised plan.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll get it
for the file. Thank you.
next week. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Are you here for the cemetery?
I am.
Play? Okay, do you want to come over and introduce yourself, name and address for the record? So in our packet, we have a letter from the Cemetery Commission.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Betsy Youngsma. I am a person for the Cemetery Commission, and I'm in here in regards to the letter that I wrote you.
Okay,
I am looking for a buffer zone for the 16 cemeteries in town. Some are private, some aren't on the assessor's map. Every year, some disappear, some come back on. It depends on whether or not anybody finds them or not, whether they get back on. So I have to go in every year to check to see if they're not, and then I have to wait 2 years for them to put it back on again. Some of the concerns that I've had in the past were the Baker Cemetery, which I understand has been sold, that land lot that was in the gravel pit. That when they took the gravel out of the gravel pit down on South Street, they dug up so close to the cemetery that some of the graves started to topple inward, and they also dug underneath. And I guess they had to backfill some of that. So I am concerned about some of the little family cemeteries that are out there that don't have a border. And I would like them preserved so that they are not built upon.
okay. So I think dimensionally, you would want to put this into the zoning bylaw, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're past town meeting acceptance right now. So I would say, do you have a list of the cemeteries? Because it's a little
Jesus
tricky
does.
to, okay, it's a little tricky to define and to monitor where each one is,
They are on a map.
where the locations are.
Yes, in his
Okay,
office.
okay. So,
They are also registered with the state
right,
through Macris.
okay.
Through the chair, may I ask
Yeah.
a question? This is
Yeah.
very interesting. As we approach Halloween, of course, right? Sorry. So, anyway, cemeteries and Halloween, very cool, right? So you say we know where they are, some are small, some of this, some of that. So like what the chair is saying, that Steve Zisk has this. Who owns the properties, and are there defined property lines around these cemeteries? That's my question.
Most of these are very old. Some of them are from the 1700s. and they were just included with the land lots.
So many are on private properties.
Some of them are on private properties. Some are, like the Douglas Center one, is all laid out, has a distinct boundary. It was created by the church and the town for its burial of its dead, so it has a distinct boundary. The little family ones that are out in, this one down on Chases, there's an Aldrich one on the top of the hill. There's one on Orange Street, there's one, like I said, on South Street. There's lots of them. I don't know where the boundaries are. It's the Quaker Street one, which is down at the corner of Pine and Vine. The town drove a street right through the middle of the cemetery and went over it. There's one on one side, there's the other parts on one side.
But if I may ask, if Mr. Zisk has a map with these on there, are you suggesting that, I mean, how do we apply boundaries to something that has no boundaries?
Right.
Right.
This is my concern is that, I mean, I'm in all respect for it, believe me, but I'm baffled, so that's all.
I can understand that. And I can give you, this is from the DCR, from the state of Massachusetts on what to do to distinguish a boundary and who's responsible for the cost of it. Because you have to get an archaeologist out to look.
Oy, oy, oy. Oak Island.
Just saying.
If I can, to the chair, I don't know, your words exactly. I cannot set boundaries on something I don't know where those lines are.
Correct.
I mean, we're telling people, what if they already have something there within the 50 feet? Now you're saying they can't be within the 50 feet? Nobody knows what's what. The cemeteries that we know a lot line on, I can understand, but property setbacks are already 25 feet where they're at right now, as, you know, in residential. Now, if something's in town or whatever, it could be different, but I know on Southwest Maine, there's a small cemetery out there. There's nobody knows where the boundaries are, so how can you say, you gotta stay 50 feet away from what? And who's gonna pay for the survey?
I mean, if I may, again, because it's just, we're all passionate about this in some ways, right? Even if there's headstones there, I think a boundary from a headstone makes sense. I mean, you don't have to, like you're saying, something toppled in, so they must have been 10 feet away from a headstone doing work. And how'd you do that, Ernie? Over in the pit over there. I mean, so there should be 50 feet from any headstone out of respect, or something. But even if there's no boundaries, but at least a headstone standing up and you know where it is, something. I just thought.
Yeah, I think a lot more work needs to be done to establish. I think I've seen it in Rhode Island, like in Burrville, they do the swear on the limits, and then they have the easement
That's what I
for
have here.
access.
Yep.
That needs to be
How to
done.
define where your boundaries are and who's responsible for the cost. of
Right,
Rhode
so
Island.
if
The
a,
whole thing is laid out.
right, if a landowner is willing to put an easement on their property, then that would probably be the best thing. So it's drawn on, and there's, you know, there's public access to that portion, and that would be the limit. So there's no way that we could have an arbitrary buffer zone because we have no idea where it is, and it takes money to determine where it is.
Right.
Madam Chairwoman, I have a
Yeah.
question, if I could. Is there state law that applies to this at all, do you know?
The only thing I have is this is from the DCR, which I can give you. Cemeteries and burial grounds. They have a 25-foot buffer
There
zone.
you go.
Okay.
From what, I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yep.
Through a headstone, a marker, a property line,
The
what are they
limits
speaking
of
of?
the
Yeah.
cemetery.
Because there is one up on Wallem Lake in the state forest. There is also a cemetery in there.
Yeah.
So-
But we're not worried, I mean, that's all DCR, right?
Correct.
That's not a concern. I mean, we're talking about where private properties are and other things. People
Right.
toppling
But they
over
also have to
headstones.
provide access to it for the family members that go and visit these cemeteries.
Right.
Right.
But if I, through the chair, if I can, so if somebody has one of these cemeteries on their private property, you're pretty much taking their land by eminent domain by enforcing this.
I would request the easement.
Right, and they can deny that easement
Right.
also.
Right.
So that's where something you can't boilerplate this, saying everyone's gonna be done this way. It just can't happen because of that. Where if people own the land, they can't deny access. But for you to go in and say, I want 50 feet all the way around it, Now you're trying to take their property.
Also, if I may, through the chair again, you were saying about access for the family members, right? So say
Correct.
Mr. and Mrs. Solomon or whatever, who was buried there in the 1700s, it happens to be on someone, 4 more generations of property owners own it.
Right.
And they say, what are you doing on my property? Well, we have right because our people are buried there.
Correct.
And they can say, what happens? I don't know that answer. I mean, it'd be nice to go visit, but, people may say no, so. But they're saying they should have right
That's
to it.
right.
But then now you take all these properties, not that probably just a handful, and you're telling folks to relinquish through an easement or some other means and create some boundary to it. And I mean, I'm all for it, but I just don't know the mechanism for it. I think that's what Mike is.
If I might, Madam Chairwoman, it says here that the DCR requires a 25-foot buffer, and you have their archaeologists come out to tell you where that begins and ends. So we might just be able to adopt state law.
Correct.
Yeah,
So DCR's archaeologists.
that's right.
Good.
But I don't think we need to adopt any state law. I
Yeah,
think that,
That's a state forest.
No, not adopt it, but just
No.
recognize that there's a state law.
Yeah.
Just apply that.
through what?
Just, it's an
How do we
existing
know?
law, so it applies now.
So let's just say the building inspector gets a building permit application to build a house, and Steve has this map. He checks the map and says, oh, you're building it on top of the cemetery. What's the mechanism? It's not regulated at all. So do we look at the state?
You contact DCR,
Yeah.
and they make a designation.
They rule the cemeteries of Massachusetts?
Yep.
Okay,
That's what they had to
so-
do on Pine Street. She had to have the state archaeologist go down.
Okay, so why doesn't the cemetery commission request their archaeologists to go to every single cemetery in Douglas to determine the boundaries? And then give us a document and flag the lot, so if there's any activity proposed.
Because the cemetery commission is only responsible for the public cemeteries, the ones that the town owns. We're only responsible for these. We're not responsible for the family ones.
So you want to buffer zone 50 feet around the town ones as well?
Around all the cemeteries that are designated as a cemetery.
Okay, so that would be a zoning bylaw. So you'd have to prepare a zoning bylaw, and you'd have to have specific map and parcel numbers, define the boundaries, and have it be something to hook into.
Okay.
On the location.
If I may ask another question, because I'm
Yeah.
really into this, because I watch a lot of these shows. Burial grounds are different than cemeteries that are public, where there are headstones, there's definitions, people pay for sites and such like that, and they're defined by definitions of boundaries and such like that. When you get into burial grounds, that's where the archaeologists come in, and that's where I found this and I found that, and then they start digging, and then they start, that gets, that's a whole different thing. But, right now, the public ones are all protected, and we can apply that, but these other stuff is sort of like,
There is no buffer around the public ones either. You're
They have
saying
the property line.
There is
Put a-
no buffer
There's no
around the
buffer.
public ones
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
right, it's only the buffer between headstones and the property lines.
Correct.
If I can, through the chair, then, why don't the cemeteries include a buffer zone of their own inside the cemetery?
They do, usually, not.
Well, that's what
not
I'm
in
getting
the
at. I mean, so
1700s.
we're asking
Yeah,
for another 50 feet on somebody else's land outside of the cemetery is what you're
I
doing?
don't, yeah. Well, that's how this
No, I can
reads.
see maybe your normal buffer, which they say is 25,
That's right.
not no 50. So if
Because it's
somebody's lived
25
next
from the
door,
building, from the line, side setback is 25.
right, it's, which they say 25.
So now it makes it
They're talking
50.
about 25.
A 50-foot buffer now,
Yeah.
that's
25 and 25, sure. But the idea of going in on a pre-existing line right now and say, okay, I want to go in 50 feet on somebody else's land, I don't see how that's going to,
I'd like to have a comment. I think it just might be easier to pass when it gets to that point if it's 25 feet and matches the DCR standards.
And our side
Yeah, that's
setbacks.
better.
right,
Or
which is a
somebody
state
that owns
setback.
the land is willing to pay for the archaeologist to come out and say, okay, there's no bodies outside of this. So I will make a boundary line around this.
Thought it was no
And it's
charge.
only 3.
Is it no
To the
charge?
chair, I'm talking about the ones that
State.
the town owns right now.
I think we should look into what extent DCR would be willing to assist with any, what they would help out with. But I think 25 would be better. Like, obviously, if it can do 100, that'd be great, but I think passing-wise, 25 might be better to meet the standards. And then I was also just curious, what exactly will be no disturbance? Is it no excavation or no?
Correct.
Nothing?
No, nothing.
So that's also a definition that has to be submitted. It's very complicated. What you're requesting,
Okay.
what you voted on is very complicated.
Oh, I bet
Just to
it
let
is.
you know.
Because I'm just thinking, like, you see, you go for 50 feet, and that stretches into
I'll
someone's
give that to Richard
lawn,
Preston,
who's
too. That's what
manicures
Rhode
their
Island
lawn, and
defines theirs
now they're
as.
automatically
Can I keep
can't do it
Yes.
because of the buffer.
To the chair?
Yes.
I have a question.
I have a similar comment as Mr. Zwicker. I can understand where you have property where you want to instill setbacks or even a buffer within your own property, but if you're talking about installing a buffer outside of the property onto adjacent property, it just, I don't know how you would do that.
I mean,
I have,
So
By
that
law.
was-
Either, yeah.
I could see where you can
Can't happen.
shrink your own property and close it in and create the buffer within your property. I don't see how you could put it on there surrounding.
and that's if you want to do it as the owner of the property. You don't, the
Yeah.
question, I have a
Mr.
question
Max, yes.
concerning this DCR flyer. I mean, DCR is Department of Conservation and Recreation. So obviously, this is in the state forest,
Yes,
but I'm sensing from the conversation that DCR has regulations over other cemeteries too. I can understand that they have a regulation within the state forest cemetery because it's state forest and the state owns it, but I don't, they don't have any authority as far as a private cemetery or private piece of
I
property.
believe the state has quite a bit of authority over even private burial grounds, because
Yeah.
when we did a survey years ago.
Yeah,
and we had to-
yeah, right.
You know,
We found a lot of them, yeah.
Go back to burial grounds versus cemeteries?
Yeah.
Oh, you say they have
Evan
drug-
Chesbro did a
Where there is a burial ground.
Is there a
because they bury
difference?
it, You know, mostly.
What's the difference?
There is a big difference, right? A burial ground is something that gets identified by people, professionals, they do that, they dig and they put up, grids and they figure out where things are and then they define them, and they have drawings and such like that, where I think a cemetery is what we see above ground. I'm not saying a burial ground's not a cemetery, but a cemetery is not a burial ground.
I think it's a distinction without a difference. It's a burial ground. Cemetery.
Cemetery, there's a difference
there
between a burial ground and a cemetery.
Yes.
There is
Yeah.
absolutely a difference
Absolutely,
between
that's
the
what I
two.
think.
Let me just.
Cemetery is usually
interject for a
affiliated with a
second.
church.
I will do this for 3 more minutes. So they do have DCR, this is Office of Cultural Resources, and they're saying cemeteries are protected under state laws that prohibit defacement, vandalism, removal of grave markers, damage to graves. On DCR lands, these laws are enforced by the state police. Okay, so there's already a state law in place prohibiting damage, and then use of heavy equipment should be restricted to outside of the cemetery with a buffer of at least 25 feet. This is not a no disturbance. This is for heavy equipment within 25 feet of the cemetery. I'm not even seeing anything else besides heavy equipment.
And if I can, through the chair, on the fact of trying to take land, like Mr. Benoit just said, I don't see any way where the state's gonna let a cemetery commission come in on your land or my land and say, I'm taking 50 feet of it and you can't do anything on that land whatsoever. I'd like to have town council opinion on that, because I know that would never fly.
Yeah, I think that awareness of those
yes.
people's on the private properties and a record of the locations so that the building inspector can double check, cross-reference. But I think that the state law is in place to do what you're requesting, and this is only the use of heavy equipment, not within 25 feet.
right. The cemetery commission also has no jurisdiction over private.
If I can, through the chair, you're asking for it though, you want 50 feet.
Correct.
So that's what I'm saying, that's why I'm talking
But
about
I'm just
50
saying,
feet.
I can't go onto somebody else's land and tell them what they can do with their
But
cemetery
if
or
it's
not.
If I can, through the chair though, you just said you want no disturbance whatsoever. in that 50 feet. So that's where I'm going at right now.
Right, I think the cataloging, the notification to the person that owns the cemetery, you know, a brochure saying, please be respectful, and then notifying for any activity that's gonna need a building permit, it'll come through the building department. So cross-referencing that map that we have in our possession, I think that would be a deterrent. I think just, you know, the public outreach would be your best bet, and then also stating the state law that prohibits the vandalism. I don't see how we could control it.
Through the chair? I think that if I'm hearing you correctly, that your largest concern is the use of machinery near these cemeteries to potentially disturb the earth or disturb the headstones, as in the case that you had. Right, so I think the state law currently has language in it that, you know, speaks to that versus trying to put something new in place in addition to that. So whatever happened where they were within 10 feet of that, I mean, obviously that was a violation and that should have been raised either with the building commissioner or whoever. But, so I'm not sure that creating another law on top of the state law that already exists. I think the kind of wild card, and I think what the chair has proposed, where you have some kind of a map to understand where these areas are, so that when the building department receives a request to do something on someone's land, that they can, as she said, cross-reference to make sure that there's an awareness that there is a cemetery there and that they are required by state law to stay 25 feet away from the headstones, I'm assuming.
And if I may, through the chair again, is there, you said Mr. Zisk has a map.
He does.
Can there be a map that's beautiful, that has, you know, like where it is and what properties, that's on the wall out here that the people know, the public knows, private and in public, unless that's some sort of, puts people in a situation where, hey, I didn't even know this was here on my land. But something that...
A lot of people don't.
Right, but I like that. I mean, I'll give you a couple $100 towards something to do it. I mean, private money.
We should start with
but that's something else. But I think it's passionate, it's potentially terrific. I just think we need to see it and people need to respect it. That's all I'm saying.
So does that give you enough ideas to try to accomplish what you want to accomplish?
I just think that sometimes when people buy a plot of land, that cemetery has to be listed on that deed.
It should be, yeah.
Typically it is.
It isn't always. The lady down on Pine Street, Ellen, I can't remember her last name, who bought that plot, had no idea that the Quaker cemetery was on it until they started to dig. So it wasn't even on there. And that's when the state archaeologists had to come in, and we had to go down, all of us, and map it all out.
So that was like burial. That wasn't like headstones out of the ground, right?
There were headstones out of the ground.
They couldn't see that.
The guy said he never saw them, even though they were knee-high.
I wonder if we can work on maybe just getting like a signage out in these places where it's not obvious.
Right.
Like, you know, burial ground, cemetery, just to identify them and then
Like the state of Rhode Island
reference the
has.
25-foot state law.
Yeah.
Start, maybe.
But that was on, I think that was on DCR land. So,
I think there are, Madam
It
Chairman,
said-
there are other
oh, no.
laws that pertain to cemeteries and...
no,
Right.
you're right. Yeah, use of heavy equipment should be restricted to existing roads and trails outside of the cemetery with a buffer of at least 25 feet. Should be. So, that's all we can do for you, but we're open if you make some progress, and I think it's just awareness of these findings, and there is also, I would send the state law, I would get the state law on cemeteries, and I would send it to any possible, even if it's a possible cemetery on a landowner's property.
Again, through the chair, something else that could be done is a small sign placed at each cemetery.
Yep.
Stating, like you just said. I know, but I'm just saying that, even all the small ones, the old family ones, like on Northwest
She
and all
can't
that.
go on the
A little sign.
private property. She could give them a sign, but she can't access those
You're allowed access to
sensitive-
visit the cemetery.
You are allowed access.
If you know-
And when she's under commission,
Okay.
they might be
I always
allowed to
ask
go in.
permission
Yeah.
before I do that, and I've never had anybody say, no, I don't want you here.
Yeah,
Except for the people down on South Street.
And then,
The-
you're checking the deeds to see if there is a cemetery, right?
Yeah, well, I try to go around to see if they're still there every couple of years or so, because.
They can disappear
Right.
in the middle of the
They
night,
disappear.
literally.
And,
Yep,
you know, with the phone number on it,
it's a lot
please,
easier.
you know,
Yeah.
any work within 25 feet, request contacting this phone number before proceeding with work. Almost like a dig safe,
Yeah, but-
you know?
We have those signs around our critical infrastructure.
Right.
See, and-
So that would be something simple, and anybody that was to be in that area, they could see that sign, you know, simple little sign or whatever that could be read easily.
But through the chair, on a private piece of property, you'd need to get the landowner's permission to be able to install something.
Install a sign,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
to cover yourself
absolutely.
from a
Yeah.
liability
No, absolutely, yeah, you
perspective.
can't leave anything there,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, okay, well, thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Good
it.
luck.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I don't know whether people even realize that, but today, if you want to be buried on your own property, you can do that. But you have to put it on your deed, that there is a cemetery there with you in it, and who's listed.
What? Really?
Yep,
Do it
that's
on your own
true.
property?
Yep.
I heard
If you
that
want to be
was-
buried on your own property, you can do that. You just have to put it in your deed.
To let everybody know.
That's right. They don't dig you up.
Yeah,
Even if you don't want the body found?
it's cheaper.
Thank you so much.
Might be
Appreciate it.
cheaper.
That's where I'll think.
Okay, 2023 meeting schedule?
Just
Yes?
one further thing on this, all this cemetery stuff.
Yes.
I think it would be a great idea to incorporate that public knowledge of where all cemeteries
That's
are in
what's
town
on the map.
that they have gathered in.
Right there, or something.
And if necessary, we can write a little part of our bylaw that says, you know,
Supporting the protection of those.
right.
Yeah, I think
One of the things
would
that you
be
have to check,
okay,
if a developer's
because-
coming in and buying 100
Yeah.
acres and he wants to develop it, in our bylaw is part of the rules and
Requirement
regs,
to
is
check that.
contact the
Yeah.
Town of Douglas Cemetery Commission.
Oh, I'm sure somebody
find out
does it
if there is
somewhere.
a
You just need
cemetery
a
plot
copy.
on there.
You need to copy another town.
Yeah, I mean,
I think-
that's, nobody's ever asked that question before. Is there a
Right.
cemetery on this piece of land that you're developing? And there probably wouldn't be a bad idea to ask that question.
Through the chair, so that happened, I think, on Whitens Road, where they were gonna connect that industrial park from Sutton to Douglas. They found an ancient Indian burial ground.
Indian burial ground, that's,
And
that
the
that was
back-
140,
on
that was 146 in
on that
there.
back property.
That
and
stopped everything.
Killed the cut-through going from Whitens Road to over
Yeah,
here
yeah.
on Gilboa. It stopped that go-through. And that was all
Stopped
behind that big
construction
red
on 146
Yeah,
and they were
for
putting it in.
main filing, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So that is part of
Those
that
ones, I have
historical.
no clue where those are.
Yeah.
Up near the Shell station.
Yeah.
You know, years ago, they wanted to cite International Airport in Douglas. Do you remember that?
Yes, oh, yes.
And one of the arguments we made to the state was there was a score of these small cemeteries, and it was one of the reasons they took us off the list.
Yeah,
It would be
Yeah.
very different today.
Yeah,
There was no
I'm
International
sure.
Airport.
right. Well, it wouldn't be Douglas.
You know,
You know, it would be, Douglas would be a big runway, is what it would have been. It would have come right through Main Street.
Yikes. Okay, 2023 meeting schedule.
why do we have 2 meetings in June, July, and
I
August?
put them all on there through the chair so you can cross them off.
Yeah,
So you can feel
we usually,
important.
that's what we usually do.
Yeah.
Second and fourth, and then we scratch out the ones we don't want.
The suggestion I had, and it doesn't bother me whether we do it or not, but what if we kept them and then the month prior, we decide whether or not to pull them? Because last summer, we ended up having to use more meetings
Yeah.
than we anticipated because we had a large project on our hands. So I'm indifferent how we do it. I mean, last time we just scheduled extra meetings. So, or, I'm just curious.
But
These
it's
are
better to have a record of it, and if we're not going to have 2 meetings in June, then people that come in know there's only 1 meeting in June. So
Right, because they're
And
continuing.
if we have to
and
add another meeting,
anticipating.
we've done that in the past. Okay, we'll call an emergency meeting, we'll have that second meeting in the month, but
Yeah, I think planning also for people's vacations, I mean, we are volunteering to
Right.
plan so that we don't
Right.
miss. Although, remote meetings without no quorum requirement is till March 2023, right now. So that'll probably get extended.
okay.
Are these still on Thursdays?
That's what it is.
Wednesdays.
It is
Thursdays.
Keeping them on Thursdays?
I had a suggestion for Wednesdays because the weekend starts on Thursday. That was a joke. So,
I brought up
But
that
if-
I brought up that 4-day weekend with my boss. He didn't seem to be in favor.
no, John didn't buy it? Jeez, I wonder why. Oh, so I mean, I can make arrangements just as it was before. And
fine with Wednesday,
Mr.
I don't care.
Schultzberg did an excellent job in my absence, so.
I'd be fine with maybe getting rid of like the July 13th, just because it is close to the 4th, and that kind of is like a vacation.
Yeah.
Well, that's if we keep them on Thursdays. If we put them on Wednesdays, it's gonna be different dates.
Yeah, I mean, we can keep them.
July is like prime time, like vacation time for probably 90%.
So,
Yeah, one in
Are we
July.
striking any of these that are already on here? That's what I
yeah,
want.
July 13th, I'd say June 8th.
These are the ones you want to scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah, June
okay.
8th, July 13th.
June 8th, July 13th.
Then you're gonna scratch the 10th of August. That keeps it evenly spaced.
Meanwhile, I'll check on Wednesdays.
Check on, yeah,
I
Wednesday.
mean, I'm, whatever the board is
I'm fine
wanting to
with
do.
Wednesdays. I mean,
I'll go with Wednesdays too, I don't care. I would not do
Okay.
Monday, Tuesday.
it's the middle of the week, you know, you're
You're
not gonna lose nothing. Thursday night, sometimes the weekend starts early.
They do call it Thursday.
Yeah, Friday's off.
Yeah, we have a couple
Oh.
days. And then Mr. Benoit can have a 4-day weekend also in the summertime.
Oh my God.
There you go.
The dates,
His can start early.
Just be
the dates on here are all Thursdays, right?
Yes.
Right now, we're looking at Wednesday.
You okay
Suits
with
me better
Wednesday,
than
Mike?
Wednesday, but who needs Wednesday?
I was preferring Wednesday.
You
You have your night, right? Your thing on that night.
Golf and volleyball. You play-
No.
Tracy, you want a 4-day weekend, take it. We'll fill in for you.
Yeah, no, I
I
only
mean,
have,
to me, it doesn't matter Wednesday, Thursday. We used to be on Tuesday.
yeah, I know.
It doesn't, I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Doesn't matter.
It's not Friday.
No, that won't happen.
No.
Anybody like, well, does anybody like Tuesdays? To go back to Tuesdays?
I liked Tuesdays. That was our
Tuesday was
usual
always-
Time to make
time.
up.
We lost it
Monday,
because they couldn't
Tuesday.
get a room, that's all.
Yeah, that was COVID time.
Oh, that's true too, yeah.
So, yeah, because we'd be opposite of the selectmen, right?
Yeah, and
Tuesday.
same as finance, I think.
That's all right.
All right, do we want to hold it till next time and check on Tuesdays and Wednesday
Well, yeah, do
rooms?
it, yeah, do a
Sounds like
check on,
Tuesday would never
Sounds like
fly.
2.
no,
No, just because of selectmen and FinCom.
So we used to meet in the other room.
But I do remember there was
We don't-
meetings going on.
Yeah, the little room.
Yeah.
Too many of us now.
oh, same amount. We always had the same amount in the other room. We used to have 2. So, just so you know, we had 2 of them associates at one time.
And I think if
We had
FinCom
the-
didn't get this meeting room, then we could claim the meeting room. Isn't that
We,
what happened to us?
Yeah, we got booted out.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if we claim it before them,
that's what, that's
And we
how
also
we,
used
that's how
to
we
have a
lost it
person
the last,
taking
that's how
minutes
we
in
got
the
on
room
to
at the same
Thursdays.
time
We didn't
also.
claim it soon enough.
yeah.
It would benefit town meeting procedure if we met Tuesday and they met Thursday. Just
Let's try it. See if we can-
Okay. All right, yeah, so we'll table that. And then we have accessory apartment extensions, 91 Chestnut Street. There was a question about the size. There was a waiver granted, page 2 of the decision. So I'll entertain a motion to grant the extension for 91 Chestnut Street.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Marks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you. Next one, no changes. It's the Aunt, 664 square feet.
I'll say I do like the new paperwork. It's easier to follow.
Through the chair, can I just ask a question about this waiver? Is it, where is the approval
Which one?
for the waiver for the 1120?
For 91?
You talking about this one?
For 91 Chestnut.
Yeah, 91 Chestnut.
Oh,
91 Chestnut.
Waiver granted,
it's right.
That should say,
page 2
Thought that
decision.
decision was in here, but it wasn't in here.
So we're saying where it's not.
I don't know if this is the place for it, so I'm just wondering.
No, this is the application,
Yeah.
but I thought we were gonna get a copy of the page 2 of the decision, the original decision.
Okay, so they just asked for a waiver for that
Yeah.
additional amount. and,
Originally.
A waiver was
Right, yeah.
granted and, okay, yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
Perfect.
it's
Thank you.
Yeah,
900
no
square
problem.
feet is what we allow, and they,
Right.
but they have to do it. at
So it
the
was
time of
verified, I
construction.
guess you would
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
They
verified.
took it away from this next one.
Yeah, there you go.
Being very generous.
Any questions on the 29 Shore Road? That's 2004.
looks good.
I'll entertain a motion
So moved?
to grant the extension for the accessory apartment for
Second.
29 Shore Road. Motion made by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Mr. Schultzberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I'll set meeting minutes, August 11th. Did we just got this tonight?
Did you say meeting minutes?
Yes.
This is the first time I've seen them, so I haven't looked at them.
Okay, so let's hold these over till next meeting. Mr. Benoit, anything else?
Yes, the draft decisions for Pine Sand and Stone
Yeah, what, yeah.
and Sleepy Hollow are in your packet.
Okay.
You should be in the vote.
Great.
Yeah, I was reading that.
And because they were revised with town council, went back and forth between both parties. The language is finalized, it was just, town council asked me to ask the board to vote to accept the decision as presented this evening.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Greco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so there's fresh signature pages, because you had signed a signature sheet before. But then some changes happened,
Okay.
start dates, so it needs to be signed again, that's all. Thank you.
Anything else?
Did we approve the 91 Chestnut
Yes.
Yes.
apartment?
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second?
Adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Schultzberg, seconded by Mr. Zwicker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.